When I went to Soros, I thought I would learn what would make the Deutschmark go up and the yen go up. And modestly, I found I was better at that than him. In baseball terms, I had a very high batting average. He had a much higher slugging percentage. So what I learned from Soros is when you have conviction, you should bet really big. I know your listeners have probably heard it before, but probably the best illustration is the pound.
Yeah. So what happened? So let's go back. So you are in the office. What's happening in the UK?
So I'm in the office in New York, and Scott Bessent, who was a partner of mine in Europe, mainly trade the European area, he's in London, and he tells me the London housing market is in big trouble and the British economy is in trouble because, like most Anglo-Saxon economies at the time, it's very much driven by housing and so forth.
Just paint it out a bit. So your office, are you like overlooking Central Park?
I'm not overlooking Central Park, but I'm near it. I'm in the Soros office on 32nd floor, but it's not a corner office. It's nothing fancy.
And the UK economy is going down the toilet.
We think the UK economy is going down, but I need to take you back about 3 years. When the Berlin Wall comes down, it'll probably save me my job because I probably would have been fired at Soros 6 months after he went to Eastern Europe had the Berlin Wall not come down. But the Deutschmark went down for 2 days dramatically because the theory in the market was the Ostmark, which was the East German currency, was going to pollute the Deutschmark. I knew German history and knew they were obsessed with inflation because the Weimar Republic, and then that led to Hitler and so forth and so on. So I knew the Germans were absolutely obsessed with inflation. I knew that bringing all these East Germans into the labor supply was going to cause a boom in the economy. So we were very bullish on the overall German economy, and we were very convinced that there is no way the Bundesbank would let inflation, so we were very convinced it would be accompanied by tight monetary policy. So we had shorted the Italian lira successfully during that period. So when Scott called me, we were already sort of on this Deutschmark journey we've been for a few years. And the British economy is going down and the two currencies are linked. So
this was a peg, right?
It was a peg. So I called and asked how much it would cost me to short the pound versus the Deutschmark for 6 months. It was 0.5%. I think the fund was around $7.5 billion at the time, quantum fund. And I decided to do an invest and then investigate position. So I did $1.5 billion, or like 20-25% of the fund, short the pound, long the Deutschmark, figuring I'd probably lose 0.5% because it's a peg and it won't break within 6 months, but I wanted the position on. Fast forward probably about 5 or 6 weeks. The day I believe was September 15th, not that I would remember. I read the Financial Times, and the head of the Bundesbank, now I'm showing my age, but I'm pretty sure it was Tietmeyer, has written an editorial in the Financial Times, basically in more proper language, but he's basically saying that the Deutschmark and the pound should no longer be linked. So I decide to take Duquesne and the quantum fund to 100% long the Deutschmark, short the pound, because it's still 0.5% unbelievably. Now you're going to hear vintage Soros. So he happens to be in New York at the time, which he wasn't always. I go into his office and I explain to him why I'm going to 100%. And he had a rather large personal account. That's how we kept each other out of each other's hair. He traded that, and it was 95% overlap. Told him why I was doing this. And he had this unpleasant, puzzled look on his face when I'm telling him my thesis, that this one economy is booming and they need higher rates, this other economy is falling apart, they need lower rates, that these two currencies shouldn't be linked. And I'm thinking, what does he not understand about this? Because this guy pretty much understood everything. And he says, look, this is a one-way bet. They come along very, very rarely. It's ridiculous doing 100%. We should put 200% of the fund in this trade. So there you have it.
So that means that you borrow money in the bank and double up.
Yeah, on a $7.5 billion fund, he thought we should have $15 billion short the pound, long the Deutschmark. It turns out we never got there, but it shows the way the man thinks. I saw it over and over again.
Because once you were trading, the thing happened.
Yeah, unfortunately, we had a pretty strong reputation, and when I started selling it that night, I noticed a lot of other hedge funds started selling it. The gossip community and the currency markets, and by midnight to 1 o'clock, the forwards had blown out. They'd started the day at 0.5%. They were like 6 or 7%, and it basically wasn't trading after 1 in the morning. Then the British raised rates, I think from 6 to 9 to try and stop the bleeding, and then they went to 12. I knew it was over, but the forwards were out so much it didn't matter, and it was It was done by noon the next day.
And you were sitting at your desk looking at the Reuters screen.
Yes, or whatever the screen at the time
What
was.
did you...
We only got $7.5 billion done, ironically.
Well, I have to ask
Had
you...
it not been for Soros, I probably would have not got to the 7.5 because, you know, intending to do 15, I was in a bigger hurry.
So what did you feel when it broke?
There was a lot of adrenaline. It was exciting. I didn't feel bad because I thought the British economy needed it. I was gratified years later when they changed it from Black Wednesday to White Wednesday. Then I went into action after it broke because the gilts were down 2 points, which I thought was ridiculous. British needed lower rates. There's some theory in the academia that if you have a weak currency, your interest rates have to go up. So I bought gilts. I bought British stocks. There was a whole...
Because what happened was that the currency depreciated and it was good for exports, right? So the stocks went up afterwards.
Yeah, the stocks went up. The gilts went up because they needed lower rates and, you know, they'd been held artificially high. So there was all kinds of other stuff I did around it, which is kind of the way I trade. You get a theme and then you look at the concentric circles or the dominoes that fall because of a theme. But the point was, with Soros, if he really believed something, the position could never be big enough.